This week on tour was supposed to be John Deere Classic Week, but they elected not to stage a tournament. So we begin 2 weeks at Muirfield with the Workday Charity Open, followed by the Memorial. Brooks Koepka and Justin Thomas grouped together after some time off. Koepka playing for the first time since withdrawing a couple weeks ago because his caddy tested positive for COVID. JT skipped last week after missing the cut at the Travelers Championship. Taking a look at our featured groups this week, all four of them. Jason Day is grouped with Justin Thomas and Brooks Koepka. Defending Memorial champion Patrick Cantlay is with Phil and Jordan. We also have Reed Wolf Fowler and Holland Rahm Woodland. Last week's winner, Bryson DeChambeau, is taking the week off. But our grouping is not taking the week off. We have Rick Gehman, Doug Bell, and Chip Patterson with us talking this week on tour. And the first time in 44 years, we're going to have back-to-back weeks at the same course. More on that in a moment. But, Rick, start us off with your reaction to what we're seeing with the featured groups this week.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff there. I think the Viktor Hovland, Gary Woodland, Jon Rahm group is pretty compelling. You've got Viktor Hovland, who is, playing as one of the best players on tour since the restart. He's got 4 straight top 25s. The other two have a few more question marks involved. Jon Rahm hasn't played up to his standards since the restart. He missed the cut at Colonial and a couple of finishes outside the top 30. Then you look at a guy like Gary Woodland, obviously your reigning U.S. Open champion. And you look at his game, and it's a little bit in distress right now. His off-the-tee numbers are not as good as what we've seen prolifically from Gary Woodland over the years. So a lot of things going in different directions. I'd love to see how these guys are going to iron it all out.
One of the best things about the featured groups on the restart is we have them every week. It used to be just for the Players Championship or maybe a major championship. Now, week in and week out, we have these awesome featured groups that we get to see on Thursday and Friday, either early, late, or late, early tee time. And it makes for compelling television. That's what it's all about. And the players want to play. It's a sprint. Bryson DeChambeau off this week, but he played 4 weeks. And he'll return for 4 straight weeks. Tony Finau playing 11 out of 13 weeks. So we're seeing all these great players play a lot. And I'm interested in the Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, and Jason Day threesome. Jay Day's missed 3 cuts so far on the restart. Has never played great at Muirfield. His wife is from the area. In fact, his home is just a few miles from the golf course, and he's a member at Muirfield Village. So I want to see how Jay Day's game stacks up against Justin Thomas, who I think comes in, expecting to have a really good week. And I think we're all expecting Brooks Koepka to pick up where he left off just a couple of weeks ago at the RBC Heritage. So that's the feature group I'm watching.
I'm buying all of the snake oil that Phil Mickelson is selling. I cannot wait to watch him teed up alongside Patrick Cantlay and Jordan Spieth because I want to see some follow-up. I mean, I almost got laughed off screen when I was telling everyone that I was buying Phil Mickelson's comments that he felt like it was close. But I went back and I checked the tape. That's right, I checked my receipts. And it was in 2018 when he hadn't won in almost 5 years. And he walks off at the Waste Management after coming close and he said, I'm really close and it's going to click. And what happened later that summer? He got it done at WGC Mexico, ending that 5-year winning drought. Now, I don't know if Phil Mickelson is going to even contend to win here, but when he told us after his last time out that he felt really good about where his game was at, and we saw him be really competitive on Thursday and Friday, yes, there was some of that patented weekend fade that we saw in terms of winning, but, we're getting him on Thursday, we're getting him on Friday, we're getting him alongside Jordan Spieth and Patrick Cantlay. I'm really excited to see 50-year-old Phil getting out there with the young bucks and competing at just a great course.
And again, Phil Mickelson is going to be with Jordan Spieth and Patrick Cantlay in one of the feature groups. All the guys playing this week are going to have a little bit of an advantage going into next week because the tournament is going to be held at the very same place, back-to-back tournaments at Muirfield Village. Is this going to be, in your opinion, Chip, an advantage that's going to make a difference, though, because we know they're going to do things differently with the course. The greens are going to be faster. The course is going to play longer next week as opposed to this week.
I don't factor it into a big advantage, especially when it comes to making any kind of picks, wagering angles, daily fantasy. I don't think that if you put any numbers players into your own power rating system and give an advantage to the players that get out there for the Workday Charity Open, then I think you are overvaluing the experience. This is a place that so many of the best golfers in the world are already pretty familiar with. I mean, Doug mentioned Jason Day being a member, and that, can have some built-in advantages, but no more so than even like Justin Rose's personal course history here. I think that maybe if we were talking about a new track, maybe if we were talking about a new event, I might factor in that as an advantage. But between players' history at Muirfield Village and between just sort of what you get out of practice rounds, I'm not going to say there's any major advantage for players that are getting in a week early. It's only just more FedEx Cup points and world ranking points.
I do think it is a decently big deal for the guys who are not the top players in the world. Kind of what Chip is alluding to. Some of these guys play the Memorial every single year. They know what to expect. But it's the next tier of golfers. Listen, there's a reason why they go out and play practice rounds. They want to get a feel for the course. They want to see what their distances are, how the ball's carrying, things like that. Now, we are going to see differences on the greens specifically. They'll be a little bit faster. The rough might be a little bit thicker. It'll be a little bit longer. But it's all about vibes so often for these guys on tour. Good vibes. If they play well this week at the Workday Charity Open and they can just kind of take a lot of positives from that, not having to fly somewhere else, just hanging tight on site, I do think that there is something advantageous about that.
It's going to be a significant change on green speeds. I think that first week, this week, it'll be around 11 and a half on the stent meter, and then they'll progressively get those greens where they want them next week, and they'll be 13 to 13 and a half. They say it's the second fastest green complexes compared to Augusta National. And again, that's next week. So I think the players will have an easier golf course this week. The rough will not be as high. They're going to cut it this week and let it grow for next week. They'll be playing a shorter golf course. The back tees will be used next week. It'll be kind of like when we all go out and play at our club or local golf course, and we like to play from the white tees. And those guys back there on the gold or the blues, it's a tougher golf course. And that's what's going to happen this week. Easier this week. The championship tees next week.
And that's when Bryson DeChambeau and some others will be joining the fray. DeChambeau taking the week off after winning and moving up to number 7 in the world. No one is playing better right now, though, than Bryson DeChambeau. That's why Doug went out on that limb last week and picked him to win. We continue to have our experts picking winners. And, Doug, you did it last week. What do you think of him taking this week off after 4 straight tournaments and getting ready to go 4 more in a row after this one?
Well, first off, I think he needed rest because he was pretty intense for 4 weeks. Not only the level of play that he was showing us, but just it's mentally frustrating for these guys. I mean, week after week, it takes a toll, so he needs a week off. But he's not resting totally. He's going back to Dallas. And from what I understand, he's working on his wedge game because he was a little unhappy with the distance control. We saw him fly several greens there in Detroit with wedges and 9-irons. So he's going back to the drawing board, what you might expect from Bryson DeChambeau. The other thing that he's working on, his putting. We talk about his driver, guys, but his putting has been off the charts good, especially last week. I mean, he's gaining almost 2.5 shots on the field in that strokes gained department. I mean, read Rick's stuff. I mean, the putter has been incredible. If he continues to putt the way he is, the driver's going to be there. But if he continues to putt and picks up where he left off next week, I mean, this is going to be a pretty dominant period for Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, I look at Bryson, and I think that after he finally got into the winner's circle for the first time in a while, the conversation just becomes major championships, in specific Harding Park at the PGA Championship. And I think that he is probably looking at this week off as a chance to fine-tune his game with an eye on what he's going to need to do. And that does include getting his short game together, because when he's driving at 350 yards, if he gets anything out of his short game, he is going to absolutely blow away the field. So he's going to come back. But I'm also looking at, how's he doing physically? We've made so much out of his physical transformation, but there is some real rigor that your body has to go through in the course of playing a lot of tournaments. 1 week off is probably much needed. He's going to come back, and then he's going to have 4 straight tournaments. This is going to be an interesting test for his new composition, for some of his new calorie intake methods. This is the first time that his body is really going to be tested playing a full PGA Tour run.
Yeah, I think I was going to be surprised either way if Bryson decided to play this week. I think that a guy who loves all of his data and all of his science would jump at an opportunity to get a full week at a course for back-to-back weeks. I thought he'd jump at that, but it's just too much golf. It's too much golf in a short period of time. As the other gentlemen have alluded to, he needs his rest. And I want to take this in a route that shows, Bryson DeChambeau is literally breaking the game right now. Our shot link system, the laser system that we use to track all of these shots, is actually not picking up Bryson's drives correctly on some holes because they're so long. They're actually being counted as approach shots. It's unbelievable. He's hitting it through the grid. He's breaking the game right now. And Chip mentioned this. It's all about major victories. Bryson is now favorite or co-favorite for the next 3 majors. So we'll see if this can translate to a bigger stage.
He's changing the game, no doubt about it. Not playing this week at Muirfield Village, but he will be in the field next week for the Memorial. Fellas, hang tight. We'll be checking back in with you in just a minute. Check out the latest First Cut podcast. Rick and Greg with some fantasy pricing, breakdowns, and advice before you set your lineups this week.
Well, if you want to make some money, stick around. Our guys are not bulking up on protein shakes like Brooks or Bryson, but they are beefing up their wallets because their picks have been so hot. We'll tell you who they like this week on the other side of the break. So we are getting ready for 2 weeks at Muirfield Village in Ohio, beginning this week with the Workday Charity Open. And there are 3 things to keep in mind as we are getting ready to make our picks. One, after his win last week, Bryson DeChambeau not in the field. But leading up to that, we saw his body transformation. It was a question of when is he going to win? Can he win? And then also, our staff picks have been so amazing. They nailed all of them, including Doug Bell, last week.
He's going to flex his muscles this week. He's had an incredible run. He's led the tour in headlines for the restart, for his weight gain, for his protein shakes, for his towering tee shots, and now he wants to make headlines with a W. I mean, he told me that. He said, listen, I'm tired of all the talk about all this other stuff. I want to talk about a win. And I think it comes at a golf course that he should absolutely dominate, a golf course that he absolutely should eat up with rounds in the mid to low 60s every single day. I'll take Bryson DeChambeau.
All right, so Doug, he was right, sure enough. Rick Gehman, he's been right twice so far. So taking a look at the odds to win the Workday Charity Open, we are seeing the return of Justin Thomas. Also, Brooks Koepka there returning after he withdrew 2 weeks ago because his caddy tested positive for COVID. We are going to see 3 of the top 5 golfers in the world, including Jon Rahm there. You see him behind Patrick Cantlay, who was the winner last year. But Jon Rahm has some ground to make up. So we'll see what's going to happen. All right, let's make some picks. Let's bring in our guys, Chip Patterson, Doug Bell, and Rick Gehman. This is my favorite day of the week, Tuesday now, because we do this. Let's start with the sleeper. So, Rick, your sleeper in Daniel Berger, that hit at Colonial. So you get to go first here. The guys are going to follow. Who is your sleeper this week, Rick Gehman?
Sure, I'll go back to that same odds tier, 66-1 for Cam Champ. And I want to talk a little bit about the progression that Cameron Champ has made over the years. He's always been an unbelievable driver of the golf ball, but his one path to victory was that every single thing had to go right because the rest of his game was pretty poor. Now, he's a much more well-rounded player, what we're seeing in recent events. And since the restart, he's finished 14th at Colonial. He finished 12th at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And my favorite stat, strokes gained tee to green, 15th in strokes gained tee to green last week. That's a great value for a guy at 66-1.
My sleeper is Gary Woodland plus 5,000. That looks pretty good to me. Now, he's the former U.S. Open champion last year at Pebble Beach, so we've seen him at his best. And we also know that Gary goes into these little mini slumps. And I think that's what he experienced missing the cut at the Travelers. Remember, he top 10 at the Charles Schwab and then was so-so at the RBC Heritage, finishing 62nd. But if you look at his history here at Muirfield Village, he has a couple of top 10s. He has 2 top 15s. And again, this is a big golf course. You don't think of Gary as a big hitter with some of these other guys we always talk about, but he is. He can get it out there, and he's still one of the top ball strikers on the PGA Tour when you combine what he does off the tee and then the irons, their performance going into the green. So I think a big-time sleeper is Gary Woodland this week in Ohio. I see him coming back from that little mini slump.
Shout out to Jeremy St. Louis. I know you're watching, and I know you're excited to hear me say Adam Hadwin is my sleeper for this week. Listen, he's got 7 straight rounds in the 60s. He had a T4 finish just last week. I like his form right now. Adam Hadwin, it's been 3 years since his last win, but in that time, he's always logging, 3 or 4 top 10s. And you go back to look at some of his best finishes recently. It's at the Shriners. It's at the Safeway. It is at some of these, off the main track events where he's able to really take advantage and have a high finish on the leaderboard. So no victories since 2017, but his success when some of the big dogs are taking the week off leads me to believe that he should be in the mix to maybe win and be a good sleeper to cash for you here this week.
All right, shout out to the Canadian. Shout out to Jeremy. It was Canada Day last week, so I'm sure he is very happy to hear that, Chip Patterson. All right, let's go with the top 10 lock. Chip, we'll start with you.
It's got to be Justin Rose. I mean, we're talking about the all-time earnings leader at Muirfield Village. He's got 7 top 10s at this course. I mean, it's been since 2010 since he won at the Memorial, but his course experience here is really almost second to none. And I love looking at Justin Rose and considering that after he decided to make the changes with his clubs, after he started to embrace a little bit of a mixed bag, what did he do? He went out there with a T3 at Colonial, a T14 at Harbortown. I just think he's really building some confidence back into his game. And when he arrives at a familiar course, that is only going to help him as he continues to improve with this new set of sticks. So Justin Rose to win, he might need another gear to be able to close this thing out on Sunday, but top 10 really feels like the floor for him.
Lock it up for Viktor Hovland, who's been one of the best players on the tour since the restart. 4 straight top 25s. And I kind of compare this a little bit to Bryson DeChambeau. We knew Bryson was on the verge. He kept putting himself in a great position to win golf tournaments. It just felt like a matter of time. And on kind of a slightly less level, it feels that way with Viktor Hovland too. He continues to put himself in a great position. He led the field in strokes gained tee to green last week. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And we've been tracking his short game. His around the green game has always been his bugaboo. It's been the issue that's held him back even just a little bit in his very short career. Well, since the restart, he's gained strokes around the green in 3 of the 4 events. So it seems like he might have figured something out in the worst part of his game. Give me Viktor Hovland.
My top 10 lock is 42-year-old Matt Kuchar. And the reason I mention his age is because these guys in their 40s who've been around a long time, they're very patient. They're not in a hurry. They know the game is going to eventually come around. He missed the cut at the Schwab and didn't play great at the RBC Heritage, where he tied for 41st. But at this golf course, before last year was kind of a bad week for him. But before that, he was 11 for 11 in cuts made at Muirfield Village. He has a win there, a tie for second, 3 top 5s, 10 top 15s. Everybody loves the Cooch, and I'm just telling you, there's courses for horses, horses for courses, however you want to say that phrase, and this fits right in with 42-year-old Matt Kuchar.
All right, Doug, I feel like we need like a crown that we can mail around to everybody because every week one of you is hitting. You got Bryson DeChambeau. He was your pick to win last week. So you start here with your pick to win, Doug Bell. Who do you like?
Well, years ago, back in the 70s, there was a golfer named Miller Barber. He played with Arnie and Jack, and they called him the X-Man because he walked around with these glasses that turned dark in the sun, and nobody really paid a lot of attention to him, and he was really good. And I think they ought to call Xander Schauffele the new X-Man. I think coming into this course, which fits his game so well, I really like Xander Schauffele this week. You know, he's still one of the top ball strikers on the PGA Tour. He likes these kind of courses. Remember, he won the Tour Championship at East Lake, which is similar to what you have at Muirfield Village. 9 of his 12 rounds so far this season have been in the 60s. He's tied for 7th in scoring on the PGA Tour. I've walked with his dad so far this year on the restart. His dad is allowed inside. That's his coach. And his dad tells me that it's close. He said it's just a matter of getting it all on the same page in the same week, because at times the irons are great, putting not so good. At times the putting is good, the irons aren't so good. I think it all comes together for the X-Man, Xander Schauffele, this week at Muirfield Village.
I'm going with a big dog, and that's Brooks Koepka at 14-1. Last time we saw Koepka, it was reminiscent of some of the best Brooks Koepka we've seen. He rises up the leaderboard on Sunday at the RBC Heritage, and he did it in a way that was so memorable. Absolutely prolific off the tee, which is what we expect from Brooks Koepka in his prime. His irons are a little bit off, but they're coming around. But I'm really investing in his flat stick. Now 8 straight rounds where he has gained strokes putting. That is something he has not done since 2018 during the stretch in which he won the U.S. Open. So if this is what we can expect, if he can ride a hot putter this week at the Workday, watch out. It could be Brooks Koepka raising the trophy on Sunday.
Man, love to hear that. Love every single word. Because I am also going with Brooks Koepka. And, you know, we talk about it being a little bit of a mix of art and science, a little bit of numbers and a little bit of gut. I think that we can shatter the narrative that Brooks Koepka doesn't bring it in these tournaments that aren't major championships. Let's just go back to the last major championship that we had, because as the Open Championship, Brooks Koepka finished T4. He, like everybody else, wasn't able to chase down Shane Lowry. But what did he do the very next week? Was it a hangover? Was it a tournament that he didn't care about? No, he stepped up at the WGC St. Jude Invitational and he won the darn thing, beating Webb Simpson by 3 strokes. I think that the idea that Brooks Koepka doesn't care about these non-majors, doesn't care about these other tournaments, I think that's out the window. And I think this will only continue to build on that as he gets himself a win here at Muirfield Village.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. His little brother Chase is also in this tournament, so maybe he'll just need to put his little brother in his place. We'll see what happens there with the Brooks. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll see by Sunday who comes out on top there. So recapping their picks there for Rick Gehman, his sleeper Cam Champ, top 10 Victor Hovland. His pick to win, Brooks Koepka. Doug likes Gary Woodland as his sleeper, top 10 Matt Kuchar, and his win is Xander Schauffele. And then Chip Patterson, his sleeper, the Canadian Adam Hadwin, his top 10 Justin Rose, and his pick to win also Brooks Koepka.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.